My favorite question is always Dungeons & Dragons is ...
That's the next question I'm about to ask you. Let's talk Dungeons & Dragons. Hey everybody, my name is Monica Biltz and this is Keep Wichita Weird. We're taking a quick stroll on the corner of North Market and Douglas, because if you're a fan of playing games and drinking lattes simultaneously, Sente Games and Refreshments is the place to be. Sometimes you need that espresso buzz when you're hitting that 6th hour of gaming. We're here to talk with local expert Erik Carl about the most successful tabletop franchise in existence, the fantasy role-playing game of Dungeons & Dragons.
I'm Erik. I am the director of a TsunamiCon tabletop gaming convention here in Wichita, which happens in the fall. Really involved in the local community and gaming around here. It's what I do. It's what I spend a lot of my time focused on, it seems like.
Absolutely. I mean, I hear your name all over the place when it comes
Sorry
to...
about that.
Have you become the face of Dungeons & Dragons?
I sure hope not. Yeah, that's really unfortunate if it's the case.
Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing fantasy game. You and your friends go on an epic adventure that is ran by your DM or Dungeon Master. He or she describes the situation, the player decides what action they want to take, and then the player rolls a 20-sided die to find out if they have succeeded or failed, depending on how high or low your roll is. D&D has been around for 45 years and is more popular now than it has ever been before.
So you say you bring awareness to it. Is this because not many people know about it, or is there misconceptions around it?
A little of both. There's a sense that this kind of hobby, if you've never really gotten involved in, never gotten engaged with it, that it's an arcane concept. It's like, it's something that nerds do and we don't understand them and we don't understand what they're doing with their time. And yeah.
I have a feeling that it's something that a lot of people are curious about. Maybe they're scared to, or don't even know where to get started, but if you have that interest in you, you probably will enjoy it if you give it a shot.
Or at least find that there's something about it that's different than anything you've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those people that feels that's worth doing. Particularly if it isn't life-threatening. We're not talking about hang gliding here.
Exactly.
In that same time period, we've seen the tabletop gaming community boom with around like board games.
Yep.
We're here at Sente right now, which is just one example of business that has opened a board gaming cafe.
You meet new people too.
Yeah, and there's the weird thing, that old strange element of the D&D kind of classic context that it's for insular groups and it's for introverts and it's a social hobby.
Yeah.
You can't do it on your own, or at least if you can, I'm not sure what you're doing.
If you were talking to an alien who'd never heard of it ever before.
I feel like I've done that a time or two. D&D is a tabletop role-playing game. It's like a board game in terms of how it functions, in that you sit with a group of people at a table. Your imagination is your primary toolbox. So you are developing a character that you play inside of a scenario, an adventure. A game master, a dungeon master, gives you kind of the details of the world, and then you and your fellow players interact with the world and the story as it develops.
How long have you been playing D&D, and do you have any fun childhood stories surrounding it?
I started when I was 8 years old. 1983, I guess. Had a friend whose older brother, he had D&D books. He had one of those weird moments that a lot of us have had over the years where he thinks, boy, it'd be fun to teach the neighborhood kids who are younger than me how to play D&D. And then you remember after about 2 sessions that this was a bad idea because this is a bunch of kids you don't want to hang out with normally, so why would you do this? But I was hooked instantly. I was into the Lord of the Rings and a lot of fantasy literature at the time. I felt like there was something about it that spoke to me and made me want more. My mom, bless her heart, she looked around at like garage sales and stuff until she found me some D&D books. And
see, that's awesome that you had parents that encouraged it, because I doubt they fully understood.
And this was right after kind of the satanic panic.
Yeah, the moral panic.
Very much this kind of sense of people not understanding a thing and attributing a lot more power to it than it had. because it is just a game.
Because even when I was a kid, when I heard about Dungeons and Dragons, when my parents talked about it, that was kind of the overlay vibe around it.
Yeah.
Was that it was something that you should stay away from. And as
lucky.
a kid, I never really understand why. And then obviously when I got older and learned what it was, I was like, what is it that people are freaking out about?
I'm so
Demonic
confused.
thing?
Is it the dice? It probably didn't help that back then there just wasn't any way to share real information about anything. Outrage is something that people always love to get on board with.
I'm gonna try to get this all out within 15 seconds. We can promise high quality and consistent Weird Wichita content is all thanks to our awesome patrons. If you support us on Patreon, we say thanks by giving you behind the scenes photos and videos, full-length interviews, a special thanks credit, and other weird stuff I decided to post. We love our patrons so much we wish we could legally marry all of them. Go to patreon.com/keepwichitaweird.
Are there any myths or misconceptions that you run into all the time that you find having to explain to people of it is this, but it's not this?
You have almost no idea what to expect anyway. The more interesting misconceptions are that it is it's a game for nerds, a game for geeks. We have now, I think, surpassed that particular trope by about 20 years.
Yeah.
My gaming tables have had everything from athletes to doctors to lawyers.
There's something very attractive to me about a game that you don't need to buy. I mean, you can buy the books and stuff, but it's not like you need to drop hundreds of dollars and collect things, and like you can spend as much or as little as you need to or want to.
One of the interesting things that happened with this newest edition that's become so popular, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, is when the company released it, they posted their basic rules online for free. You walk around the convention hall at Tsunami-Con, you see different things at every table and different kinds of, people. Some people have elaborate setups with maps and miniatures and terrain, and other people have a few half-written scripts, sheets of paper, and some dice they're sharing.
Can you explain to me what a dungeon master is, how important he is? Just
we don't need that guy.
Throw him out. You can figure it out.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. The dungeon master is somebody who, whether they create the world and the scenario and the quest and the adventure themselves, or they get that information from somewhere else, they're the person that manages it at the game table. They present information that describes the world. They're the eyes, the ears, and everything of the players in that world. But everything you say and do as a game master is built to provide context. All these elements of gameplay in the environment that you're in, the world that you're in, and the adventure you're in, all that is handled by your dungeon master.
Let's talk about Dungeons & Dragons in Wichita specifically. Tell us about Tsunami-Con. What are the places to go, and what's special about Wichita Dungeons & Dragons community?
I moved here about 12 years ago. And I was in radio. I got out of broadcasting a few years after I got here. I needed to do something else, so I started the podcast.
Which is great, because that means they're distracting the other people, and the female thing is moving. All right.
This may be why you don't get a lot of dates, Larry.
It may not be the possum.
I prefer 4 legs to 2 legs. Thanks.
Oh, dude, that's going places.
Like right onto my soundboard.
And so I felt like it would give me this chance, this unique opportunity to kind of reach out and build a community around what I was doing. A lot of these podcasters that were in bigger towns like Chicago and Vegas and people I was listening to out in LA, they would do events locally. And so I thought, we could do that. I mean, we don't know if there's any other gamers in this town. Turns out there was. We ended up kind of settling on the Burrow. It's a real geeky kind of gift shop, so it's just wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling novelty items. There's other places in town. There's Hero Complex is a game store that they focus a lot on wargaming supplies and miniatures. Headshots is a bar over on the east side, and then Ryan's expanded that to include a coffee shop next door now that's got like board games and stuff, tabletop Java shop. Grinning Goblin on the east side is another one. It's a bar that's got a kind of very tavern kind of feel to it. Next Level Cafe is another one in town. And then we have Sente here downtown.
I think it's really cool that Wichita alone has so many places that you can go.
And it shows you just how prevalent because they're supported. I mean, these aren't places that are failing. They're not dying off or anything.
They're thriving.
You walk in, a lot of evenings they're packed.
What advice would you give to someone watching this right now who wants to get into Dungeons and Dragons but doesn't know where to get started, doesn't know what event to go to first?
Definitely there's groups on Facebook. There's Wichita Gamers. There's a Wichita Dungeons and Dragons, Tabletop Heroes. My own page for Tsunami-Con. We try to update with information about what's going on.
If you reach out, you'll get a response.
And always.
Tell them everywhere that we can find you, every single thing that...
Gosh, How long
that
do we
you're
have?
involved in.
Podcast is called Metagamers Anonymous. Tsunamicon.org is the website for the convention, but it happens in October. We have our Facebook pages at Prismatic Tsunami and at Tsunamicon Wichita.
Oh, I admire how much you're putting out into the world. It's
I'm trying.
incredible.
At some point, I looked at my wife, I think in the last year or so, and said, you know what, I realized that I've always thought of myself as a writer or a musician or, these other things that define my life. But D&D has been part of my life longer than almost anything. This is stuff that nobody but the weird people are.
The nerds.
Yeah, nerds. I know that I get a little bit of flack because I don't get out there as much and get involved in the local community.
You're doing a lot in the community, so
Well-
if you're getting flack for not doing something,
It's
people are
because
picking you apart.
I wrote a book, so you can sell your book, and yeah, it's just
You
fun.
wrote a book?
Yeah, I
Why
wrote
have
a
you
novel.
not mentioned this?
Well, we talked about D&D.
Oh my god, okay. Real quick, tell us about your book.
I'm a sci-fi fantasy author, which isn't surprising given my hobbies.
I'm shocked.
I wrote a novel that I published called Shadow of the Spire. It's a very kind of fantasy horror kind of thing, and I'm working on the sequel right now that there was a demand for. But,
Buy his book.
right, it's
Oh
on
my
Amazon.
god. If I knew, I feel so bad for not knowing. I would have had it displayed right here.
I'm
the whole
very
time. Right
very
now,
well.
we're gonna insert a little spin graphic of your book and some music.
Well, my wife and I sell tea. We sell loose leaf tea.
Are you ever playing, D&D, and you just crave a nice
Yeah.
hot cup of tea?
Right.
Well, we got the place for you.
We released a card game last year, a zombie survival card game. It was fun to do. But what it is
What's
is
the name of it?
Zero Signal.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
it's
another
also-
spin graphic.
Yeah. Everybody wants to leave some kind of mark and have a legacy
done
of
it.
some kind. I sometimes wonder because my kids don't seem impressed, but
They never will be.
that is the problem.
You just
isn't
gotta
it?
accept it.